Welcome, everyone, to the Heart of the Artist. It is Tuesday afternoon, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and I am here with you today, Whisper Poet, with my amazing guest, Valerie Lorraine, and we are going to jump right in with this amazing woman. Valerie, welcome so much. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
First off, I have to ask you, because you have that glorious mane of hair, are you a Leo?
No, I'm not. I'm a Cancer.
You have this absolutely just gorgeous, like lion's mane of hair. It's so pretty.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure I would recognize you in a crowd anywhere if I saw you.
You know what? It's um, it's fun it's actually fun for me to maintain it. I've had long hair all my life, except for twice in my life. I've had long hair, and both times I regretted it instantly. So,
Well, it suits you well and it
thank
fits
you.
with this, you have this bold personality. And I had the fantastic opportunity to co-host a show with you recently,
And it
and
was
we
so
had
much
such fun. And you have this fantastic, bold, just yeah, like zest for life personality. And it fits with your hair, your whole persona, your image. And I was thinking about getting ready for this interview, and I thought, I feel like I know you more as like a host, as a businesswoman, as a mom, more so than the poetry side of you. So I
fun.
definitely want to learn more about that today. So how did you first get into the poetry community?
Wow. Well, I joined IG, and it was actually, it's the strangest thing. I don't know why I remember this. It was March 30th, 2021. I have no idea why I remember that so vividly, but um and I met some really, really great people right away. I really had no particular idea that there was such a huge community here. And some of the people that I met right away were just the best people, and they're still in my circle right now. And I love this community on Instagram. It's like my home base, I call it. And I'm thrilled with the people that I meet. I find them inspiring. I find them really genuine people, very caring people. Um, and I love sharing with them. I love growing with them, and I love, just supporting the community in the way that I do, because I feel like if I just seen a quote, I think it was this morning I saw it, and it said, if I help somebody climb a mountain, we've both reached the top. And I love that, because I've always said, like, we're in this race together. We're all meant to cross the finish line, and that, like, we're all going together. The only way that we're not going together is if you are in my way or our way, and you're causing that. I'll hip check you, and I got some motion there. You're not stopping us.
I
so
love
uh so I feel that camaraderie in that community, and um it gives me inspiration.
I know what you mean, and I totally agree with you that the people in the community are just lovely. And it's funny because the percentage of really nice people in our poetry community, the ratio is so much more skewed towards, everybody being nice as opposed
Right.
to, regular life, that when you come across someone who really isn't very nice, it's sort of a surprise. Like you're sort of taken aback because you just get so used to everyone being kind and generous and open-hearted and supportive of each other's art and craft,
Mhm.
whatever stage of growth someone is at, they are supported and cared for and appreciated, for their own personal journey and for what they're giving to the community, the energy and the positivity. It's awesome.
I agree. I came out of corporate, and anybody who's ever been in corporate knows that as much as you work together, there's still huge competition. And in fact, where I was, we had certain core pieces of our job that we were graded against others who had our same job and were doing those same core work. We were graded monthly against them, which was competition wise, right? And
Right.
I'm highly competitive, but I was a senior trainer in the last 2 corporate jobs that I've had. So I had this desire to help people and get them independently working for themselves, because that's what a good trainer does, right?
Mhm.
And as well, still make sure that I'm doing my very best to climb and achieve what I needed to achieve. So I'm really enjoying taking everything that I did in corporate and transferring it over into the arts and losing that competitive piece to it, where I'm really only competing against what I did yesterday.
Yes. Yes. You're
Yeah.
competing against your own goals, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting point that you make, though, because when you are a competitive person and you are a person who has, you know, clearly defined goals for yourself and drive, as you so clearly do, what happens when your craft of poetry is not developing the way that you want it to?
Then I look for the inspiration in the community. And that, I mean, you know, I go back to all these sayings, right? Like iron sharpens iron, or whatever you want to, steel sharpens steel. And it does. It really, really does. And it's just a matter of finding those right people and those ones that inspire you, the ones that make you want to do better. Just like sometimes it's just their attitude and being around them. Other times it's their craft. Um, Other times it's that mentorship, whether it's mutual or whether it's just one-sided. That's okay. Um, so I have this saying that I rarely use because I think people take it the wrong way, but it's okay to use people. So we think of using people in such a negative way.
Right.
And I as well have experienced that. And I will never do that to anybody. But I will use you in a positive way. I will use you for your gifts. And when you develop your gifts by helping somebody else with your gifts, you are elevating your level of gifts too.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and there's so much out there, so many perspectives. We're in a very strange time in life where we have access to so many people's opinions, so many worldwide too. And it can be a double-edged sword. But if we choose to protect ourselves and take what we can from it, then we are living in our best. And I just think that um, if we are given a gift, the reality is that gift is for other people. It's just driven through us. So if we're not sharing our gift, if we're hiding our gift because we have fear, then what we're really doing is we're depriving others of getting their gift and their blessings, and then we're not growing ourselves. So
I love that.
sometimes it's coming out of a comfort zone.
Yeah, I love that philosophy. I love that outlook. And I know exactly what you're talking about, you know, quote, using people. I was in one of Benita and Tierra Nicole's lives the other
Mm-hmm.
night, their cipher thing that they do.
Yeah.
And the two of them were kind of spitting their pieces, you know, warming everything up. And I got so inspired listening to Tierra that like my pen woke up, you know, in the middle of her, you know, spitting her words. And so I had to write something out. And so, you know, it was using that inspiration to create something for myself, which I then in turn, you know, shared back with them, and they had a great time hearing it. So we just we inspire each other to do better and better. And it's wonderful. It really is. And I can so see how after being in that corporate arena with, and I'm assuming that competition you're talking about is they're probably doing that whole bell curve grading thing. Ugh, Yeah.
Yeah, it's tasks and it's extra. There's a lot of extras, right? So it's like, this is your core job. These are the expectations, and these are like, the bonuses, and this is what gets you, higher on the chart. And my competitive nature, because of course they didn't tell me they were grading me when I first got there, because they wanted me to ease into my job. And when they told me, because the position that I was in hadn't been taken care of for a while, my position had been on the bottom, and me just coming there and doing the job had raised it. And when I found out that, like, oh, we have some competition here, I never came out of, like, I was number two, number one for all the years I was there. Me and one other person, we bounced back and forth between one and two, because we were both the same type person.
You know what I think is so another thing that's so cool about our community, and it feeds right into why I wanted to do the Heart of the Artist, but it feels like there are so many really strong women in our community who have a unique voice and have a vision of what they want to do.
Mhm.
And somehow this electronic poetry world that we're in just it's this wide open space that we can create anything that we want. And
Mhm.
it's really inspiring to watch what people have done, what you have done, what Marissa Prada is doing with Red or Green Books. I mean, there's just so much going on that allows people to shape their lives and their art, and themselves, in whatever way they wish to.
You know, I think that it is the most satisfying and what's the word? It's more than that, empowering. The most satisfying and empowering and scary thing that you can do is create something out of nothing. And it's a drive that has to come from you. And some days you got your foot on the gas and you're like all the way there. Sometimes you're speeding, sometimes you're coasting, and sometimes you are at a road stop. But the fact is that, every day that you're doing something for yourself, and it is empowering. And when I'm at the road stops, I try not to beat myself up, because that is something that we can really do. But my mind never stops thinking. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, my mind never stops thinking. So I always tell myself, like, when I start to beat myself up about not, you're not producing, you're not doing, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. I let myself know that, like, I need to gather my thoughts. You need to decide what direction, and there is divine timing. And if I was meant to do this, if I believe in the universe the way that I believe in the universe, then I have to understand that that drive will be there when I need it. We will put it back in drive. But right now we're in park, and there's a reason for it. So
So
yeah.
with everything that you've got going on, I mean, you have Origin of Thought. How many shows do you have under your platform? I know it's a lot.
So at one point we had up to 15, and it kind of goes through these cycles. So right now we're on a transition cycle again. So I think we have about 10 shows right now. We have a couple in hiatus. We have some new hosts joining, and I'm still like, I've always got my feelers out. I have plans for that channel. Some things have worked out beautifully. Some things, I still work on, because it is for all artists it was meant for. And we're so entrenched in the poetry community, that's where it's really been driven. But it's for visual artists, it's for musicians, it's for everybody. And so, and as well, in my mind too, I'd love to see it go for those times when we're not doing poetry,
Mhm.
like meditation, yoga. I'd love to see all these kind of things added to the channel, because these are an important part of our life too. And these are sometimes where we get our inspiration from, is those quiet moments and to be able to take that break and slow our mind. So that's Origin of Thought, and it's a beautiful channel. I absolutely love it. I love the people who are there, and I can't ever speak about that channel without referring to my wonderful administrator, Debbie. She keeps that channel going when I am otherwise engaged, and her doing the dailies allows me to investigate other people to bring them on and do those kinds of things. And I do all the promos for the shows, so that gives me that time too, because it's only so much time in the day.
So how do you order your time so that you still have time to write?
List, list, and more list. I manage my time with lists and my calendars, and um on the days that I get more done, that's wonderful. There's days when I don't get as much done as I'd like to for numerous reasons, and then I look forward to the days where I'm able to do the catch up and get tons done. So, and Debbie helps me so incredibly with at least that channel.
So when you're looking at the idea of, creating another show, there are a lot of variables that go into making a show a success. What percentage of it is the host and what they bring to the table? What percentage of it is the design or content or structure of the show? And what percentage of it has to do with whatever else it's competing against in a similar day or time slot?
That's a really good question, because the truth is that it's really about the host, right? I mean, they have to draw and have a good room that people are comfortable with, and that's the nice thing about having a multitude of hosts, because as we all know, we don't necessarily gravitate to everybody. We all have personal preferences. Some people like a real calm, mellow room. Some people like, a lot of hilarity and talking. Other people like structure, like let's go, let's go, let's go. And so it has a lot to do with hosts. It has a lot to do with also, I mean, some people want curated reads. Some people want DM readings, open mic. Like there's a lot of different variables for that. And that does structure into the timetable as well, I've noticed. And as far as what else is on, sometimes that doesn't really matter. And that part's surprising, but there's so many people out there that it doesn't really matter. In fact, my show on my own channel, Starfield Saturdays, my very, very good friend, Arsenio, is on at the same time as me on Saturday nights. And our rooms are both full. And we have a lot of people who go back and forth, and we know it and we encourage it. In fact, half of the time, Arsenio and I are back chatting during the show to see how each other are doing. And we have an open door policy for our shows, no matter if our mic's closed or not. If your show finishes before my show and I come in your room, I'm on, because we both know, like, when you're putting that much out, you don't get a lot of time to share your own poetry. So, I think for the most part, this community is that welcoming.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And kudos to you for your Starfield Saturday, co-hosting with you. I definitely got to see firsthand the rapport that you have built with the folks who come through. And it says a lot that someone wants to come into your show and say, here, will you please read my work? Because that's a very personal thing to hand your work over to someone else and say, will you read it?
It is. It really is. And I think we start to realize that when we hand our work over to somebody else to read it, and how did they do with it? How did they feel about them reading it? And as generous as we are with our compliments, there are times when we appreciate what they did, but we might not have loved it. And so then we start to realize, like, if somebody's handing me their work, they are trusting me, and there's an expectation there to do your very best. And I don't take that lightly. And I don't let people, I don't let them leave without a sense that their work is special. Like last week, we were very, very busy in the room, and my co-host was from the UK, and he chose to stay up till like 6 in the morning to host with me. And when we finally, he, needed to go, I still have like about 12 pieces to be read. So I promised everyone, not only am I going to open up a different room at a different time and read your pieces, I'm also going to take your pieces and share them with other hosts and ask them to read them. So you're getting a 2-for-1, because I respect that much. Like, you stayed in the room, you expected your piece to be read. So I'm not gonna leave it be and just treat you like, oh well, you missed out.
Absolutely. From I sent you had said at the beginning of the show to please send some pieces to J Mac. Isn't that J Mac? Isn't that what his
Mm-hmm.
name is? J Mac. So I sent my piece to him because I'm a good little rule follower. And but I was listening to you guys and I was lying in bed listening, and then I just got sort of sleepy and drifted off. And when I woke up the next morning, I was like, dang it, I didn't get to hear them read my piece. And he was so kind. He actually sent me a message and he said, the piece of yours that you provided, just, he said, that resonated with me so strongly. He said, I've been looking for several years trying to express what happened in the aftermath of the breakup that I went through. And you sent that piece through. And I was like, yes, this is what I've been trying to say. And he was so kind. And I thought, how smart you are to have chosen someone to co-host with you that is really tuned in like that.
Mm. Yeah, I try really hard to, like, not just ask anybody. I try, and if, like, I do like to get outside of our general community as often as I can, because I like to add that um growth component to it. Welcome new people into the room that maybe we haven't heard from before. Um just give somebody in our community that different elevation of, these are new people to us. Hold on one second. Sorry, this is
Bless
still
you.
lingering. Um, so, but in doing so, I try to make them people who can be trusted as much as our community expects that room to be. And I always say, like, this is a safe room, and I've had to make sure that it is a safe room. Um, you know, sometimes you get trolls, so kicking them out, um, making sure that the people who are in the room are genuinely kind. And you know it's so rare, that there's something that's not kind, but it does happen. And then we just and so I think the biggest thing is that when you, in order to be trusted, when you say you're going to do something, you have to. And when you can prove that, we're not perfect. So if you do bugger up sometimes, then people find it acceptable because they understand that you didn't mean to, and that um and that it is an exception to the rule.
I think that is very wise. And it takes me to, I was watching a show the other morning, and there's a character that this host does, and the character said something that was misinterpreted by someone who was listening, and all of a sudden things got, very tense, and I was watching this going, wow, this is, hmm. And it just kind of, caught me off guard because we just never see that. You're like, you're right. It just doesn't. I think one time, Rainier, I think is his name, Rainier
Yeah.
700, his show was going on, and there was someone who posted something unkind about a poet who had shared, and he was very quick, to jump in and say, yeah, that's not how we're going to roll in this
Right.
show. you know, if you can be supportive and be kind, or, you know, hit the bricks.
Yeah.
And it was exactly what he needed to do.
I absolutely adore Rainier, and I have a little story about him. So when I first met Rainier, I was just, thought he was all that in a bag of chips as far as his personality and his poetry, and so I not just do my own thing. I'm actually part of some other channels as well, and some people know about that and some people don't. So I was in a meeting with another group, and they were talking about bringing on Rainier as a host on their show, and I supported that. I said he'd be great, and I said I was thinking about him for my channel, but you guys got there first. So they dragged their heels, they dragged their heels, they dragged their heels, and so I snapped him up from my channel. And I told them straight out, I'm like, you know what, you guys snapped your heels, you dragged your heels. I said I had to snap him up, because if you guys didn't and I didn't, somebody else was going to. And that doesn't mean he still couldn't be part of any of our channels, but that might be all the time he has.
Right.
And I just think that he's wonderful. And it turns out that our birthdays are days apart. So it makes a lot of sense, because we both gravitate to the same. Some of our poetry is very similar in the way that the content is. And so I really enjoy watching his room. Yeah.
Well, speaking of poetry content,
Mm.
want to share some words with us?
I would love to.
Great.
Let me see. Hold on. I gotta do one thing. I just went to open my device. Somebody's asking for the link so they can come in, and I would not deny them that.
Come on.
So, and 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now that that's done, I can go and give this. Okay, so one of the shows that I do is I bring a guest host on to Origin a Thought, and I ask them if they would drop a prompt. And so we put the prompt out, and 2 weeks later, that guest host and I come on and we read all of the prompt responses. So I've been writing to them too. It forced me to write something within 2 weeks. So this was a prompt by the Pretty Provocative Poet, and it is called The Sound at the End of Time. That's his prompt. So this is my piece to that prompt, and it is called Can You Hear It? And I've subtitled it, This Poem is a Trigger Warning. My heart is already breaking, a wound spilling my life into a new making. Wailing tears of betrayal and bereft, I yell and scream with what of me is left. None here, so it might as well be silent. The sound at the end of end times came from the distant. The evil of this world played abound, psychopaths, narcissists, and killers around. Stalkers circumvent justice, remaining free. Victims heard screaming, why me? Justice, still blindfolded, holding scales, filled with the weight of crimes, crashing in ears, bombarding our mind. The sound creeps, encroaching the end of time. An innocent girl lays on green grass ground. She's long since gone, nevertheless waits to be found. On worn, rotting fence posts nearby, murders of crows, scream bloody cries, furiously hidden in lies. Another pervert invades punishment of crime. This is a sound at the end of time. The sun sets with vigorous, dire, gray ash clouds escape a ravenous fire. Apocalypse has arrived as the world inhabitants dies. They struggle and grasp at breath to stay. This world we know prepares to enter the fray. As in all death, there is hesitation. Spiritual light begins penetration, hearing the last sense to leave, rising to ears, this clock does chime, the sound at the end of time. The last thing I witnessed, the last thing I saw, as breaths took their final draw, the mighty oaks took a collective scream. They curved and swayed and curiously lean. The cypress lets out a soprano of choir, falling to earth. On and before us, crashing forests in unison fell. None were saved, for all I can tell. Layers of death, the vision a shrine, resounding the sound of the end of time. Divinity stood in standby on sorrow. There will be no more days, no more tomorrow. Angels and demons anxiously waiting, watching the pain and the sorrow in great anticipation. Souls descending and ascending to their fate, all expecting heaven when entering their gate. They scanned our lives in determination. We were supposed to live in preparation. You listen as they judge the life you designed, and that is the sound at the end of time. Valerie Lorraine.
Girl, Poe was on your shoulder hard when you wrote that. Wow. That is so dark. And
It
especially,
is,
I
isn't
love
it?
that image of the Lady Justice, like Lady Justice kind of above and behind it all in this scene, this sort of apocalyptic scene playing out, in front of it. And were you thinking of Poe, or were you hearing Poe or feeling Poe when you wrote that?
I'm not the best rhyming poet. And so I've been practicing. Um, and so lately things have been coming to me more and more in rhyme because I've been trying. And so the sound at the end of time poem, it was so difficult for me, in all honesty, because every time I lay my head down at night, that's when stuff comes to me. And sometimes I'm too tired, and other times my phone is like plugged in way across the room. So I'd say to myself, and I always kick myself, I'd be like, that's so good, I'm gonna remember it. And I never do. I'm foolish for believing that lie. And I know it's a lie. But so I had this one verse that really stuck with me, and it was about the girl. And I thought, okay, well, if I don't remember the wording, I'm sure gonna remember that, because it just, and I did. So that was kind of how I started. And then some of it rhymed. So I thought, okay, I'll make it all rhyme. And then of course the rest of it had to rhyme. So but that's how that came apart. And I just really worked on it to embellish it working. But I enjoyed that, right? And it was very dark. And I thought, okay, well, we are gonna go dark with this. And I did put the foot on the brake, because I could have gone much darker, but I left it fairly tame for what I could have really done.
I was gonna say, I really felt that apocalyptic energy in that. I could feel your energy fueling those words. Those were not just words on paper. You were doing some therapy with that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's so one thing we haven't talked about is I'm an advocate for domestic violence. I myself have been somebody who suffered through this and successfully has worked at healing. Healing is a journey that is not ever really done. Anybody who thinks it is got a lot coming for them, because depending on the depths of your personal hell, you'll think I'm done with at least that part of it, and something somewhere will trigger you to a new depth. But so I've done a lot through writing to work on that and get some of my truths out. And those were some of the hardest writes that I ever did in the beginning, because I had somebody who's a very good friend of mine who was saying, what you've been through could be a catalyst for somebody else's healing, to know that, you as a, and these are their words, you as a strong woman can work through this and still be here, and that they may need to know that. And that was really hard for me, because a lot of the perceptions of domestic violence, and things that keep it perpetrating, is we like to victim blame. And even victims can find themselves victim blaming, right? Things like saying, like, well, I would never let that happen to me. I wouldn't do that. You would never catch me doing that. She must have, or he, said something or done something to deserve that. And these are so damaging, because you don't know what you would have done. You weren't in that situation. You don't know the manipulation and the trauma and the love bombing and the entire situation that comes along with all of this. So you don't know what you would be put into. And the very word manipulation, you have no idea the degrees of manipulation that happen to make you question your own heart and mind and keep you in that. So you have no idea, because you've never been in that. So those are very dangerous things to say. Not only that, but karma loves when you like to judge other people and prove to you that you don't really know. So be careful. And you just don't know the level that people get into a confusing situation that they don't know how to get out of, or they don't know, they can't see the forest through the trees, so we have to be very careful. But that was very difficult for me when I started writing about it. In fact, the very first poem that I wrote about it was very long. And when I even just thought about writing it, I was a mess for a total week. Not even a hot mess. I was a disastrous mess for a week. And then when I wrote it, and then after, I was such a terrible mess after, because I was like, well, I had talked myself into writing it with the fact that I didn't have to share it. But I knew in my heart, the minute that I wrote it, that I at some point would share it. And that was, devilishly hard, because what are people going to think of me? Is this going to change what they think of me? And no matter who you are and how much you care or don't care what people think about you, those are thoughts that you have. So these were difficult decisions for me to make. And of course, that once you can say, well, I can just take it down, or I don't have to say it anymore. But once you say it once, it's out of the bag, especially
Yes.
on social media, right?
So
So
did you find it when you first started writing about these things? Did you find it difficult, or was it easier for you to allow yourself to be vulnerable in your writing and put that out there? Or is that something you had to make a deliberate choice to open up like that?
I did make a deliberate choice, and it was a very difficult choice for me. It was something that at first I felt like I didn't want to do. And then when I came to it, after I did it, then it was like, it was done. So after that, it was like, okay, like, that's just that happened. And so it became much easier. And the depth of the poetry became better, because at first, if there's some great lines in that piece, but it's long and it's, kind of chaotic. But it was that gateway. Yeah.
I think that vulnerability is what we respond to in each other. It's the pathway for connection between us. And I feel like the poets that I just their writing resonates with me so deeply are people that are able to show that from, within themselves.
Oh
And it
yeah.
fascinates me that in a casual interaction with someone, you don't get that out of them, and then all of a sudden they lay this poem on you, and it's like they're bearing the ventricles of their heart, and you're like, oh my God, what did you just do?
I know. And I agree with you because it's so personal, and it's so really incredible that they have that bravery to do that. And I honor and respect that, that they're able to open themselves up to people that they don't even know, to share these kind of things. It takes a great amount of bravery, and not just once, every time, because you don't know who's in the room. You don't know who. And while we can talk about all the wonderful people that we've met, there are people who are sheep in wolf's clothing.
Yeah.
And I have as well met a lot of them. And luckily for me, I worked on myself and worked through the lessons that I was given in this bad situation, so that I can do my darndest to never be hurt or manipulated again in that way. And I strive to be able to see the yellow caution tape as opposed to wait for the red flags. So, but people who manipulate are sometimes very, very, very good at it. So, and it's another thing too, right? Is there's this balance between, am I protecting myself or am I shutting something out? And so you have to kind of walk this tightrope and decide, is this where I want to be? And if I missed out on something because I was protecting myself, so be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many times have you been in a situation where you're writing, I call it writing therapeutically, even if it's not necessarily your intention to write therapeutically, but you've gotten into a topic and subject matter that really is kind of working on some issues that you've got. How many times have you written something where you sort of stumble across an essential truth of yourself that you didn't realize was there, and the writing brought that out?
A number of times. A number of times. I like to sometimes write where something's going to take me, and I've got a lot of pieces that they're never going to see the light of day, mostly because they're crappy, because I just let myself write. I didn't take any time with it to make it anything other than what it needed to be at that time, and that was for me to get something out. Sometimes there's a great line or two in there, and I've taken it out and used it in another piece, but I've left it be. And it was meant for me. It wasn't meant for the public, and you can tell the difference between those pieces.
I call those mind fragments.
Yeah, absolutely, they are.
Well, speaking of pieces, I think it's time for us to have some more.
Okay. Well, since we've been on the subject, I'm going to read this. This is the Shadow Chronicles. This is called Lucifer. And this is one of the domestic violent pieces. My shadow said, run. And for a moment, I was going to, but instead I whispered, no, stay with me. I didn't know the burden to come, nor the stolen innocence. I should have left when my shadow did. My heart was then taken over by a demonic terrorist, with the force of Lucifer bursting with rage into a church, graciously admiring the parishioners in the pews for their sins. Exposing my love to you was something I should have never done. My humanity was your playground. You burnt open your wings in raising glory, leaving me in awe. Your charm devoured me, tainting my intuition. And when I exposed you, you rushed at me, taking my breath away. Your wings held tight at my throat. Finally, you were fleshed out. Lucifer impersonating a demon impersonating my lover impersonating love. My love just was. Truth is better than lies and will always be better than your interpretation, your impersonation, your failed attempt. It's there I glimpsed your imperfections. I saw you, Judas, for a strung out moment. I saw your tormented, ugly eyes. My physical bravado stood against you, not believing you would. My shadow knew better, fearing fate. My shadow, only there because the light made it stay. Wiser than I will ever now always follow my shadow. If he won't go, nor will I. As when I went alone, I was damaged. Before your aileron fists fell upon my delicate innocence, you spat, I am doing this to hurt you. Indubitably, yes, you did. Week 1, black. Week 2, blue. Week 3, purple. Week 4, pediche. Week 105, trauma still vibrating within, tender in the depths beyond vision. It was the gray matter that didn't want to let go until it made sense of the senselessly broken mess. It was the red pumping flow that didn't know how to put the vestibule doors back on the frame or sweep up the stained glass. And how could either, when there is no answer? There are no explanations. There will be no justice. They took that away from me too. I have no absolution, but I have my shadow. And if he won't go, nor will I. Valerie Lorraine.
That was intense.
Yeah, it was.
I had chills
Thank you.
running over me. And I don't know how much of that was autobiographical and how much was artistic license, but if you went through even a quarter of that, like, wow. And you have turned yourself into a successful, strong, charismatic, amazing, admirable, fun, awesome woman.
Thank you so much.
So like, mad respect for coming through all of that, for fighting your way through it and charting a course for yourself that is fulfilling what you want instead of
Thank
someone
you.
else's agenda for you.
Mm.
Is that something that you had to figure out, someone else putting an agenda on you versus you being internally driven? And did you always know that you wanted more?
I was really happy in my corporate career. In fact, I was up for a really big promotion, and I was so looking forward to it. I worked so hard for it, and I got really sick, like really sick. I'm not talking about the flu, and I wound up in the hospital for a very long time while they tried to figure out what was wrong with me, and they couldn't. And 5 years later, I'm still searching for answers. However, I've had to, I figured out real quick that I had to reinvent my life because the person that I am was not a corporate worker. The person that I was not just a mother, but I was very tied to those being my identity. And when I could not go to work every day that changed, and it took me like a year to really just absorb that and decide that I had to fight for myself because I couldn't just do nothing. My mind never stops. And so I had to do something, and that was when um I had started writing again, like probably about a year before this happened to me. And so I put more into my writing, and then somebody in my life had encouraged me, like, you should make a book out of this and share. And but my writings had been intensely private, and I didn't I couldn't even see that, like I didn't share them with anybody, but now I'm supposed to put them in a book. And so anyways, after um after that, I did. So that was my first book, Falling. And I was very excited to put that out. And there was a lot of challenges putting that out. It wasn't fun. It took a lot of the excitement away because, it was a lesson. And then I put my next book out, which was My Life Untitled. And I really enjoyed that book. That was my little baby. Falling was my first child, my big lesson, my learning curve. And then the second one was quite a joy to me, but it was very short-lived because I put it out, and then and a month later I put out my very first anthology. So I was very focused on the anthology and didn't really get to celebrate my book, My Life Untitled, out because I was, it wasn't just me, it was all these 11 other people in the book and me. So I really was promoting that book. And then I worked on another anthology. So I have two of my own books. I have two anthologies out. I'm in the midst of getting ready to produce another anthology, and I'm working on another book. I have been for about a year, and this book is rather different. It's some, so I'll call them journal entries, even though they're really not, but it's working through some memories, and then poetry that supports, even some um, places where I realized, oh, I was healing this. And while I was healing this, I realized that this was the precursor to being in this problem. And so kind of that unraveling the yarn ball. And so that's what that book, and I have no deadline on it because I don't want to put myself on a deadline for a healing journey. But I love what's coming out of it. It's beautiful.
And you
And
self-publish, right? You self-publish?
I self-publish, and I also, because I had all the problems that I had, I even had it a little bit with my second book. I decided that because this is who I am, right? I'm like, I'm not gonna let other people go through this. So now I work at editing, formatting, and guidance through self-publishing. And I made that like a little business for myself. So that's something that I do. And it's just, I mean, I give people tips and hints for free, but I do take money for my work. So I do that. Yeah.
So this will be book number what that you're going to be coming out
So the
with?
anthology will be what's out next. So that'll be the third anthology and the fifth of my books.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's exciting.
Very,
It's always
very
exciting.
prolific. Yes, very prolific. So, where can are you on Amazon, or do you have your website? Where can someone purchase your
So
book?
yeah, my books are on Amazon. If Amazon has the Author Central, so I'm on there. So it's amazon.com/author/Valerie_Lorraine. Take you to all my books. If you just Google books by Valerie Lorraine, I'm sure you'll find that as well. And then yeah, so you can find me there. You can find me in my DMs on Instagram and ask about books, and Yeah, I can lead you to them or get you a signed copy.
I definitely want a signed copy.
Ah, there you go.
So
Yeah.
did you grow up writing? Was writing something that you did from a very young age, or is it something that came to you along the way?
I think, well, so what it started with was reading. It's just always, always, always reading, and um, it's to the point where, I remember in my 20s, I would read 3 or 4 novels a week, and I was always, always reading. And then, I did write when I was in high school, and you know, I did all that, and I was very, very good at English, and then motherhood, careers, all that kind of stuff kind of took precedence. But I've always had that love for words and that love for storytelling, and bringing something together in a way that is entertaining but also sends your message. Hmm.
So when can you remember when was your first official poem that you wrote?
Oh, in elementary school. Not saying it was good, but yeah, I remember writing in elementary school, and writing some stuff, and I know in grade 7, it might have been 6 or 7. I guess it was grade 6. I remember my teacher asking me, like, "Did you write this?" I said, "Yes, I did." And I don't think he believed me, but I did. But I always, because I was such a voracious reader, I read well above my age, and to the point where the librarian in the elementary school phoned my mom and said, she's taking out books that are above her age. And my mom said, "What kind of books do you have in the library? Like in the elementary school, what kind of books do you even have there that are you worried about? Like, shouldn't your concern be that she's reading?" So I have my mom was a voracious reader, my dad was a big studier. So I have them to thank for my love of reading.
I was just thinking about my own experiences with precocious reading. I don't know how old I was. I think I was maybe in fourth grade when I was raiding my stepmother's bookcase and came across her copy of the Kama Sutra.
Yeah.
So precocious reading can take us into interesting places.
It can, right? It
So
can.
where do you see? I mean, you're building, community. You're building. I hesitate to use the word empire because that has a certain connotation, but I mean, you're building something. You're creating something. You're definitely building a brand.
Yeah.
What's your vision for yourself?
Well, I part of it I don't know. And I love that part of it because that means that I'm not closing myself into a box. Um, I love seeing where it's going to take me. Right now, I'm working with the Federation of British Columbia Writers, which is where I live. And I've got a little gig for 2024 hosting a course. And so I'm excited about that because this will be shocking to everybody. Um, I'm loving the fact that I am actually merging my those two communities now. So I have some more things coming with them, which I'm very, very excited about. But as well, I'm bringing some of my community, my beloveds, into this course as guests to help me bring about some of the most wonderful things that we do as poets, and vice versa. I'm welcoming um, the people who are in the course to come over to Instagram to broaden their community. So I'm loving that fact. And I'm in a part of my life where I do have goals and aspirations, and I am working for to do those. but I'm also allowing the universe to gift me where it wants me to be. And that feels really good because I trust in it so much. I know that I know I'm not doing anything wrong. You know, I don't need to push the throttle on this one. It's bringing me some beautiful gifts and wonderful people that are connecting with me. And so I'm just sitting back and riding the course, and um, I'm still driving. I'm still driving, but I have the beautiful universe as my co-pilot, and
It's
they're
a good
telling
feeling
me,
when you know you're in the flow.
yeah, yeah. So, you know, I'm just enjoying life right now, and I have grown children, and I've become the next generation below. Um, is I'm responsible for a multitude of reasons. And that has been a huge adjustment after being on my own for some time, but I'm loving that as well. So I have this whole new life that was completely unexpected, when all because one day I was at work and the next day I wasn't.
Everything kind of takes you to an interesting place.
It's
So you talked earlier about, domestic violence is something that's being very, very near and dear to your heart as
mhm.
advocacy for that. Is there a particular charity or um, book or anything like that that you would like to share for anyone who might be going through a struggle or know someone who's going through that?
Well, if you're on Instagram, um, there are a few pages, and I'll note a couple of them, but you're always welcome to be in my DMs and I can direct you. But there is a page that is the self-defense girl, and she is amazing. But it's not what you probably expect, but she does give you knowledge of how to protect yourself mentally as well as physically. But mentally is, in my opinion, far more important, right? Because to know your surroundings and know how people operate, know how they're trying to lure you in or get you to not think about what they're doing. And as women, we have been conditioned to ignore our intuition, and that is the worst thing that you can do. There is a book, and it is, oh, you know what? Um The Blessing of Fear. I know I'm not saying it right, but I will get a link and send it to you. And it is a great book because it talks about our intuition and not ignoring it, and it gives examples about how predators try and get you to ignore your intuition and talk you through, and they don't shut up so that you're kind of blinded. So that's a great book, even though I didn't quote it right, I'm sorry. Um, there's also lots of pages on narcissist, exposing the narcissist. My ex is a narcissist. Maria Contenlego, I think it's pronounced. She has a beautiful page about narcissist. I'm not saying the world is full of narcissists, but there's certainly a lot out there, and a lot of people may not count as a narcissist, but the behaviors are important to know, um, because people do things and they may not even be cognizant of what they do. I think it's just important to understand. I think the biggest thing I always get out of speaking to somebody who I'm not sure about is, what are they trying to do? What are they getting out of this? And if I feel pressured in any way, then we're done, because I'm not playing that game. Whether it's just a matter of control, whether it's a matter of I like to get my way. These are slippery slopes. So, yeah, if you want to be in my DMs about things, if I don't know the answer, I'll find it out for you, like the title of that book.
It's impressive that you've been able to come through some of the things that you have lived through and have this understanding of this is how I'm going to set a boundary. That can be a really difficult skill to learn. And I think it is a skill.
It's a skill.
Because a skill is something that you practice and become more proficient. And I think setting boundaries is definitely one of those things. Some people may have an innate ability to do it, but definitely the more you do it, the more proficient you become.
I think that if I could leave anybody with any kind of thoughts about it, you nailed it, because boundaries are the biggest thing. If you don't have good boundaries, you're in trouble. And I can put my hand up and say that I used to be that person because I wanted everybody to be happy. But not everybody wants you to be happy. They want to be happy. Those are dangerous people. And if you don't have boundaries, they are definitely going to zone in on that. People look for stuff like that. So you need to practice your boundaries, not for my sake, for your own, Jen, you, the general public, but it's a practice. It is a practice. And, set them small, set them for small things and stick with it. And in the end, you will be happier. And so will the people. You're going to start to see the people that are around you are way better quality people. And you're the one who benefits from it. You are the person that answers for your life at the end of it. Even if it's to yourself, if that's your belief system. When you're however old, 99, and you come to the end of it, you're the one who has to be happy with your life. And that comes from small things like setting boundaries.
I love that. So we're almost at the end of our time. Would you like to close us out with another poem?
I do. Thank you so much. I'm so excited because this is a piece by the lovely Benita and Tara Nicole put out the prompt, If I Were a Poem. And so I wrote to it, and this is my take on that. And it is boringly called If I Were a Poem. If I were a poem, I would glean my inspiration from stars. I'd wrap my words in sparking warmth with devotion and desire to make you see me. I want your attention and admiration. I'm willing to admit in every word I seek your heart. Each verse vexing your senses, tuning your vibrations to my key. If I were a poem, I would deliver myself softly, give myself wholly, offer you my vulnerability. Would you read me? Would you tease me with a heart? Could I watch the count increase? Or after a read, would you scroll past my humanity, closing the cover? I'd never recover. If I were a poem, nothing would matter but making my way to you, offering you the significance of my heartfelt meaning. I would reach for relatability, hunger for your hanging lust of my love poem. If I were a poem, I would starve for the food for thought as you whisper your comments. Savoring saves to have your eyes linger over me once more. Sharing my beauty, yes, send me out there again and again, a tempest acrostic. Your name is my pen game. If I were a poem, I would peacefully play with metaphor, hiding my love for you behind the sun, eclipsing the truth, using shadows to play with you, drawing you out into the light. If I were a poem, my love would free verse somewhere between Venus and Mars, held breath in stars, tales the universe knows and no other has heard. Practicing odes until I found the one that becomes the Pied Piper, the serenade of siren song, The Cupid arrow launched in spoken word and struck circle center. If I were a poem, I'd publish worldwide to find where you hide. I'm calling. Can you hear me? I delicately chose words I thought needed to be heard. I hoped would stir the herd to part the way to where you stay. Verses edited and chopped, calling out to the flock, but still secrets screamed in scribbles, only meant for you. I called out to nature, glistening morning sun, frost called at first gold, reflecting on dew. Writer's block cannot hold me back, only make me overdue. I'll use hues and stanzas and horizons for bars. I'll sonnet sunrise and crown sunset. It's not my thing. But if you please, I'll haiku just for you, my unknown muse. And when the A B rhymes end and my CD cursive is wild, I'll prompt myself, remind myself to be me, always me. So if I were a poem, I'd show you how soft I am after rough hands and villanelle hearts burnt me. I would dread your ballad meant to reach your ears and pierce your soul. I have no intention of being anything else but epic, holding dusk, gray acres rent-free in your mind. If I were a poem, every word would create imagery seared into skylines. My elegy, a cluster of stars surrounding planetary moons, and my sestina suspended amongst Saturn's rings, leaving no doubt my poem would become everything you remember. I pray for these days, not just to be any poem. If I were a poem, I'd want to be your favorite poem. Valerie Lorraine.
Yes. Yes.
Thank
That
you.
was that was spectacular. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I knew that I was going to enjoy this conversation with you because we vibed so great when I co-hosted with you on your show. And I am so happy that you chose to come and be here with us today and to share your journey, share your words. You're an inspiration, and you're definitely a symbol for anyone who thinks they can't manifest their dreams out of, a poetry hobby. Poetry can't um, provide me with a living. You're an example that no, if you have drive and you have ambition, you can craft it and manifest it and make it any way you want it to be. You got to have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of drive, and set some good boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will edit that a bit. It was beautiful and I really appreciate it, but I'm gonna edit just not just poetry, art, art of any kind. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't talk yourself out of it. You know, when they say love what you do and it will never feel like a job. If you have a hobby and you love it, you know, step into it. Step into it just a little bit deeper every time. But thank you. Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. I was so excited when you asked me to be here with you. And I promise you one thing. This will not be the last thing that we do. I know I'm going to have you back on Starfield Saturdays again because I loved it to bits and pieces. We jive so well. And, I'm definitely going to keep you in my back pocket and of my mind for anytime something exciting and fun happens. I'm going to be running over to grab Brandy and say, gotta do this with me.
Oh, and don't forget, you've invited me to come visit you in BC. So
I did.
I'm all
And
about taking you up on
I
that.
know we're going to go up into Alberta and go and check out the Northern Lights.
Yes.
Right?
Bucket list.
Yeah.
Bucket list.
Right.
Valerie, thank you so, so much. This has absolutely been a fantastic show. I have so much enjoyed talking with you. You are a treasure, and I am proud to know you. Guys, this is our show. Thank you so much for joining us in Heart of the Artist. Peace.